is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Draft Sharks YouTube channel. In this video, we are going to be going over the 5 biggest surprises from the 2023 NFL Draft. That 3-day event had a lot of twists and turns and all sorts of trades and weird news happen, and we are excited to break down some of the more shocking events with you here today. Now, if you want to see how some of the draft picks affected our Dynasty rookie rankings, you can go over to draftsharks.com and check that out. It is all updated, ready for your eyeballs to check out. And the best part is I went ahead and I put the link in the description so you don't have to work too hard to find them. But without any further ado, let's get into the 5 biggest surprises from draft day. I think Jahmyr Gibbs going number 12 overall to the Detroit Lions was a very, very crazy move that not a lot of people saw coming. It's very rare that we see running backs, especially in today's football landscape, get top 10 draft capital. We've only seen a handful of guys do that over the last several years. Most recently, the guy that was picked before him, Texas running back Bijan Robinson, going number 8 to the Atlanta Falcons. But the Vegas odds were pretty in on that, especially later in the draft process, so we wouldn't really consider that to be much of a surprise. But Gibbs going number 12 to the Lions definitely was, especially considering the fact that fantasy football favorite DeAndre Swift was still on the roster. But surprise, in another twist of events, he gets shipped off to the Philadelphia Eagles for very little draft capital in return, which immediately opens up a pathway for Gibbs to be a pass-catching complement in the Detroit backfield with free agent acquisition David Montgomery. Jahmyr Gibbs is not a particularly big athlete, standing 5'9", 199 pounds, but he definitely has the best pass-catching chops of any running back in this class. And whatever offensive coordinator Ben Johnson has in his head to cook up for QB Jared Goff and everybody else, this could be an insane outcome. So if you're taking a very high pick in your rookie drafts, you definitely want to consider Jahmyr Gibbs maybe as high as like the 3rd overall pick in super flex. Maybe I'm getting a little bit too out of control here, but that just goes to show how shocking this move was. It definitely blew my mind. I'm sure it definitely blew some of your minds, but let's get into the second thing on our list and talk about some more surprises from the draft, with the fact that the Buffalo Bills passed on wide receiver and settled on taking Utah tight end Dalton Kincaid. I'm sure dynasty managers out there who roster Dawson Knox were a little bit disappointed to see this news, but if it helps, kind of assuage any of your concerns, here is a quote from Bills general manager Brandon Beane after the draft when talking about Dalton Kincaid. He's not your standard Y tight end. He's going to be flexed out more than you necessarily would with tight end Dawson Knox, which essentially leads to the conclusion that Kincaid will probably be the slot receiver in this Bills offense. I know a lot of people, including myself, thought that Ohio State Jackson Smith-Njigba would be a very good fit. Thought that the North Carolina wide receiver Josh Downs would be a pretty good fit for this offense. But Brandon Beane's going a little bit, a little bit off the board, off the wall, out of the box with this pick, and it could turn out to be a ton of fun. Many NFL draft pundits lauded Dalton Kincaid as maybe the best pure pass catcher of anybody in the draft, regardless of position. And if this pick pans out, we could be talking about fantasy superstardom, especially for those of you that play in tight end premium leagues. Man, I loved Dalton Kincaid in the pre-draft process, but now that I know he's going to be tied to that Bills offense with Josh Allen for years to come, the heights of this could be insane. I'm so excited. But getting into the next thing on the list, Will Levis falling out of round 1 was a bit of a shock. I know I wasn't particularly high on Will Levis as a prospect, but I wasn't necessarily expecting him to fall out of the first. I thought maybe, Tampa Bay picking toward the back end of the first round might be a landing spot for him, et cetera, et cetera. But either way, Levis didn't have to wait very long to hear his name called in the second round on day 2 when the Titans picked him with the 33rd overall pick. And the cool thing about this, perhaps, is that he'll have time to sit, learn, and develop behind the incumbent veteran Ryan Tannehill. Will Levis has the prototypical size, standing at 6'4". He does have the rocket arm, but he needs to improve on making better reads and also his ball placement skills, and maybe sitting on the bench for a little while, taking those backup reps in practice for a few weeks will help him get there. And if he ends up being the starter in 2024, he could actually end up being a pretty good value pick for you in your Superflex rookie drafts. So, as shocking as this was, this may actually end up being the best turn of events for Will Levis long term. Now, getting into the next thing, this is the thing that probably pissed me off the most, if I'm being honest. Zach Charbonnet was the only running back that earned round 2 capital in the 2023 draft, and he landed in Seattle with the Seahawks. And now it's going to be a complicated committee with him and Kenneth Walker III, and I don't know how to feel about it. I guess we could view this conservatively as some sort of Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt situation that we had with the Cleveland Browns over the last several years, where each guy's pretty good. They kind of cap each other's fantasy ceilings, but if one or the other gets hurt, then the other guy ends up being a superstar. I don't know. And it's just, it sucks. We really wanted to see Zach Charbonnet go to an NFL backfield where he could have a larger share of the workload to himself. But with how much head coach Pete Carroll has been on record saying he loves to run the ball, this might not be the worst thing in the world. So when it comes to your rookie drafts, I guess you just kind of have to value the risk reward with the whole thing. And are you willing to sacrifice the fantasy upside by taking a safer, more boring player like Zach Charbonnet? Or I don't know. There's still a lot to unpack here. I don't know. I don't know how to feel. But let's not dwell on this for too long and get into the fourth item on our list, the fact that Jonathan Mingo went in the early second round to the Carolina Panthers as the 5th wide receiver off the board. I did not see that coming. But when I did record a recent video that you can go check out in our YouTube channel about the top 5, fits for some of these wide receiver prospects, I mentioned that somebody like Quentin Johnston would be pretty good for the Panthers offense because he's a bigger bodied traditional X type receiver that would fit well with the offensive scheme that head coach Frank Reich ran with the Indianapolis Colts, how much it funneled targets to a guy like Michael Pittman Jr. And when you really think about it, Mingo's not that far off from an archetypal standpoint. He is also a larger guy, kind of big play, big catch ability that does not have a very diverse route tree, but can definitely make large plays happen that could turn into some scores. And as he will continue to build rapport with number 1 overall pick, quarterback Bryce Young out of Alabama, this could end up paying dividends, honestly, as early as 2023, because Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, Terrace Marshall, none of those names really scare you. And look, not to be super reductive or to get, super hyperbolic here, but when we think about an Ole Miss wide receiver prospect with a limited route tree, but does have the big playability and the big athletic profile, kind of sounds to me like DK Metcalf once upon a time. So, by no means am I saying that Jonathan Mingo is going to be the next DK Metcalf, but the fact that the Panthers were so willing to trust a player like him with this high capital means that fantasy managers should be excited, especially those of you that play in dynasty leagues. You could definitely think about Mingo as a round 2 pick, probably somewhere toward the middle there in your upcoming rookie draft. So I don't know. That was a lot to unpack there, but if you have any big surprises from the draft that I didn't talk about, please feel free to share those in the comments. Let us know. Communicate with us. We would love to hear from you. But until the next time, it's your old pal Herms saying thank you for coming to the Draft Sharks YouTube channel and thank you for swimming with us. Adios.